Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, we're going to dive right into this today because, well, if you're a business owner operating in or even just expanding into Germany, there is one word that can absolutely send a shiver down your spine. And that word is Abmahnung. Basically, it's a formal cease and desist letter, and honestly, it represents a massive structural threat to small and medium enterprises right now. So today, we're breaking down exactly how this whole system really works, why smaller businesses like yours are disproportionately targeted, and most importantly, what you can do to protect yourself. We're going to look at the hard data, the real financial costs, and those specific sneaky compliance traps these automated legal scans are constantly hunting for. To really understand the impact here, let's kick things off with a real-life cautionary tale about a small business that thought they were totally ready for the German market.
You know, the excitement of expanding can turn into a legal nightmare incredibly fast. This is the story of Atelier Nord. They're a French e-commerce SME selling handmade home goods. In week one, they did exactly what founders dream of doing, right? They expanded into the massive German market. They translated their site, they set up local shipping, launched their meta ads, everything seemed perfect. But jump to week 8 and boom, a registered 4-page legal letter shows up. It's an Abmahnung from a specialized law firm representing a competitor who had basically just been monitoring new market entrants. Atelier Nord tried to handle it internally, but by week 9, they missed this brutal 10-day deadline. By week 10, the competitor filed for a preliminary injunction. The court granted it, and Atelier Nord's German sales were literally halted overnight. 3,500 euros. That right there was Atelier Nord's immediate out-of-pocket cost in legal fees. And that's not even mentioning the 2 full weeks of completely frozen operations, or the fact that their entry into their most promising new market was totally poisoned. But what really makes this number so tragic? Every single compliance gap that triggered this whole lawsuit would have cost just a tiny fraction of that amount to identify and fix before they launched. It was, quite frankly, a completely avoidable disaster.
All right, let's move right into Section 1, Abmahnung versus government fines. A lot of business owners make a pretty critical mistake right out of the gate. When they hear the phrase compliance violation, they immediately picture these slow-moving government regulatory agencies. But confusing the two can literally shut down your business. There is a stark difference here. A regulatory fine comes from the government, usually under something like the GDPR. And that process, it can take months, sometimes years. But an Abmahnung, that comes straight from a competitor, a specialized law firm, or a consumer group. The deadline is a brutal 7 to 14 days. And the injunction risk is the real kicker here. If you ignore an Abmahnung or just miss that super short deadline, a court order can be issued in just 24 to 48 hours to shut down your operations. Now, both are real risks, for sure, but the civil law Abmahnung moves incredibly fast, it comes from completely unexpected directions, and it requires an immediate professional legal response. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, a highly profitable legal industry. So what's absolutely vital to understand here is that Atelier Nord wasn't just unlucky. They didn't just stumble into a grumpy competitor. They fell straight into the crosshairs of a highly structured, highly profitable, and perfectly legal industry. The Abmahnung was originally designed as a pre-litigation tool to resolve disputes out of court, which sounds great, right? But it has evolved. 200,000 to 300,000. That is the estimated number of Abmahnungen filed every single year in Germany. There is a whole network of law firms, informally known as Obmann-Anwälte, that have built entire practices around systematically identifying non-compliant websites. They use automated scans, they operate purely on volume, and they send out these templated letters on behalf of qualified entities. Their costs to send these out are incredibly low, but their throughput is massive. And this brings us to a core theme, structural asymmetry. It's a real David versus Goliath situation, except Goliath usually wins this one. Large corporations have in-house legal teams, they do rigorous quarterly compliance reviews, and they have the institutional confidence and the budget to contest overreaching claims. These specialized law firms know that. But small and medium businesses, they're usually running on template sites. Maybe they just copied a privacy policy from a competitor, and they definitely do not have in-house counsel on speed dial. So when they're hit with a $2,500 demand and a 10-day deadline, what do SMEs do? They panic, and they settle fast. This dynamic makes small and medium businesses the absolute preferred, most profitable targets for this entire industry.
Let's get into the specifics in Section 3, the top compliance landmines.
So if automated law firms are out there scanning thousands of SME websites every day, what exactly are they looking for? Well, they don't even need to dig deep. The most common failures are literally visible within the first 30 seconds of landing on your website. The absolute #1 trigger is the uniquely German Impressum, your legal notice. If it's missing, if it's incomplete, or even if it's buried more than 2 clicks away from your homepage, you are an immediate target. Next up, cookie banners. If you're using an opt-out model instead of the strict prior opt-in required by the TTDSG, their bots are going to flag you instantly. Then we've got outdated privacy policies, or the Datenschutz, and if you're in e-commerce, it gets even stricter. Missing cancellation rights, the Widerrufsbelehrung, and incorrect displays for VAT and shipping prices are massive landmines. And none of these are obscure hidden rules. They are the absolute basics of German digital compliance.
Now for some good news in Section 4, proactive prevention over costly cures.
I know this all sounds incredibly intimidating, but let's shift gears from the scary reality of the legal landscape to empowered, proactive action. Because while the system is definitely stacked against the unprepared, it is remarkably easy to disarm these automated scalers if you just take control of your digital presence. The financial reality of taking control is super clear. If you take a proactive approach, running a scan, maybe hiring a lawyer to fix a few things before you launch, your total cost is typically well under €2,000. And crucially, it happens entirely on your own timeline. But if you wait to be reactive, a basic legal response to an Abmahnung is going to run you between €1,000 and €5,000, and you are forced to deal with it within a 7 to 14-day window. If you miss that deadline and it escalates to full litigation, you're looking at €10,000 to €30,000 or more, and your business could be completely suspended in the meantime. The math here is pretty simple. It really pays to find the gaps yourself.
Actually, scratch that. It's not even just about the money. You also have to consider the reputational lever. Court proceedings in Germany are generally public. If you get taken to court over compliance failures, that becomes a permanently searchable judgment against your business. Imagine spending months or even years building brand trust in Germany, only for your competitors to point out your legal failures or for the trade press to report on it. The Abmahnung is absolutely a legal risk, yes, but it's also a weapon that competitors can and will use to damage your hard-earned reputation in a brand new market.
So I really want you to remember this rule. The scan that finds your gaps today costs you nothing. The Abmahnung that finds them first costs you far more. These rational law firms, they're running a high-volume business model. They want easy, undefended cases. If your website has a clean compliance posture, a highly visible impressum, proper cookie consent, crystal clear e-commerce flows, you become a difficult target. Documented compliance is literally the ultimate deterrent because they will simply move on to the next vulnerable site. Which brings us to one absolutely critical question. Will they find your compliance gaps first? Every single day, your website operates in Germany without a proper compliance check. You are rolling the dice against automated bots designed to cost you thousands of euros. Don't let your business be the next Atelier Nord. You have the power to step out of the crosshairs today.
Stop waiting in fear and take immediate control of the situation. You can run a free, comprehensive scan of your website in under 30 seconds over at sitetoddles.com to identify your risks and fix them on your own timeline. It looks for the exact same gaps that those Abmahnung and Velte are scanning for right now. Because in the German market, compliance isn't just about following the rules. It's about deciding whether your hard-earned profits belong to you or to an automated law firm. Secure your business today. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.